Listen to this, a new Washington Post op-ed saying Democrats walked into a shutdown trap, saying, quote, they wrongly assumed their political leverage would withstand the ensuing fallout. The most likely outcome is that Democrats will come to regret having walked into a trap. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is not backing down.
Republicans tried to bully us, and it's clear they can't. They don't have the votes. The way out of this is for Republicans to finally roll up their sleeves and get to work. Republicans need to get serious and start actually addressing the looming crisis and reopen the government.
Massachusetts Democrat Congressman Jake Auchincloss joins me now. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. So the Washington Post editorial board is concerned that Democrats may have overplayed their hand, and they point to how Republicans handled the 2019 shutdown. They tried to get border funding and then ultimately caved after 35 days. What do you think about that? Do you see this as a similar situation, but the shoe being on the other foot here?
Good morning. We're in unprecedented times, so I don't think previous scenarios are that instructive. I think the middle class is going to decide who's fighting for the right thing right now. The middle class has had a bad 2025, and they're the ones who pay the bulk of the taxes that fund the government, and they need to get something in return for funding Trump's out-of-control administration. And what they care about right now is corruption, they care about public safety, and they care about the cost of living, particularly health care. So before this shutdown, I said, I want to see Republicans negotiate on those three things. Release the Epstein files, okay? Spare Medicaid from some of the cuts that are going to raise the cost of long-term care, and fund the COPS grants that the Republicans have cut that will make it harder to train and to hire local law enforcement. Very reasonable asks that have a supermajority of support across this country.
So that's very interesting, because most people are talking about health care, but I hear you talking about COPS grants and releasing the Epstein files. What has the reaction from your Democrat and conservative colleagues been to that?
The most important question is, what has the reaction from the average American been to that? And all three things I said: preventing Medicaid from having to make cuts to at-home care for individuals who need long-term services and support, funding local law enforcement, and basic transparency. I mean, the Epstein files is a start. It'd be nice to know what's going on with the Trump coin as well that foreigners are buying. These are things that really don't have a partisan valence to them. These are things that most people view as common sense, and candidly, most Republicans would quietly say they agree with. Most Republicans don't want to see their rural hospitals closed. Most Republicans don't want to see their local police department have to fire that first new hire that they made last year because the COPS grants get cut. I'm in the minority. I get that. I'm not asking for the Democratic agenda. I'm asking for some basic bipartisan asks that the middle class can feel like help them after they're funding the government.
So I hear you talking about health care in that answer, and Republicans are saying that if you restore some of the cuts that were enacted in the big, beautiful bill, federal dollars are being provided to health care for illegal immigrants. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson on that yesterday.
They're trying to take out in its entirety the reforms that we put into the big, beautiful bill pertaining to health. What we did was we strengthened the Medicaid program by making sure that ineligible recipients are not on the rolls. They estimate that 2.3 million illegal recipients for Medicaid will be pushed off the rolls because of our reforms, and that it's going to save $185 billion of taxpayer funds. So they want to return all those ineligible people back to the rolls, and many of them are illegal aliens.
What is your response to the House Speaker, Congressman?
I'm glad you raised this. It is untrue. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for federal Medicaid dollars. And I would encourage Speaker Mike Johnson to go home to Louisiana, to talk to the community health centers, to the hospital association, to the clinicians who are actually providing medical care, and hear from them what this one big beautiful bill is going to do. Because what it's going to do to Louisiana is take billions of dollars away from care that is used for elderly individuals who need at-home care, for parents with children with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And it's going to raise the cost of health insurance premiums for those who get their health insurance through employers, because there's going to be more uncompensated care at emergency room. This bill raises the cost of health care. Medicaid is not a giveaway program for undocumented immigrants. Medicaid helps average people, particularly people who need long-term care. And the middle class does not want to see their health care gutted in order to give $5 trillion worth of tax cuts to the ultra-wealthy.
Well, it's a he said, and it's being debated and negotiated, and that's why it's important to have both sides on. But one thing is clear is that this shutdown is having real impacts on Americans. Caroline Leavitt laid out exactly who will be impacted, who is being impacted by this shutdown right now. Here she is yesterday.
1.3 million active duty troops will work now without pay. Critical food assistance for low-income women, infants, and children will now lapse. Nearly 50,000 members of the United States Coast Guard are going to have to work unpaid. Over 13,000 air traffic controllers will work without pay, as well as TSA agents, which will very likely create flight disruptions. And pay will now stop for over 150,000 federal law enforcement officers. These are not just numbers and statistics. These are real Americans who have families at home.
How is the shutdown impacting your constituents, Congressman, and how long do you think it will last?
Shutdowns are bad for America. It's interesting to see someone standing at the White House lectern complaining about the state of affairs. I was a platoon commander in the Marine Corps. You're trained that you are accountable for everything that happens or fails to happen on your watch. The Republicans have control of the White House, of the Senate, and of the House. And rather than fund local law enforcement and release the Epstein files, they would rather shut down the entire government and make this whole country suffer. They are in charge. They are accountable.
Well, House Speaker Mike Johnson would say that Republicans in their House did do their job by passing that clean CR, sent it over to the Senate, where it does need 60 votes because of the filibuster. It needs bipartisan support. But, Congressman, we thank you so much for joining us. At some point, the lights are going to be turned back on. It's just a matter of getting there. Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss, we appreciate your time.
Yeah, there's 20 lawmakers who are meeting informally, trying to maybe circumvent their leadership to come up with ideas. But I think Democrats have totally overplayed their hand.
Well, they need 60 votes, and they have 55, so they need to get those 5 more. So because Rand Paul was the only one on the Republican Party that didn't vote for it, so they need 5 more Democrats to come over. You have those 3 already.
I don't know about y'all, but one thing that frustrates me about this process is one thing to have different policy prescriptions and debate the merits. But when one side says this is not in the bill, these things, I mean, I've been going through this morning. It's hard to read through this legislation and figure out what each side stands for. But when you go on national TV and you say, hey, there's no funding in here for illegal, and you know that's not true, that makes it hard for Americans to decide what is false and what is true. And judging by not only the vice president comments yesterday on our program, but Jackie's report as well, there is clear funding for illegals in this bill that they wanted.
Yeah, well, if you work for a company, you have a budget, and that's exactly what our country has. We have a budget. We just need 7 more weeks of funding. So the Republicans are saying, let's just pass exactly what we passed in March and fund our government for the next 7 weeks. And they're angry at the Democrats because they're saying people are going to go without paychecks. People are going to be furloughed just because they want to throw in this money for illegal immigrants. And they're blaming it on Chuck Schumer and AOC because they say that she will probably be primarying Chuck Schumer in his next election. And he was killed for supporting Republicans in March, and he doesn't want it to happen again. Here are some of the Democrats, the Republicans, and AOC was approached because she was saying, well, if Republicans have a problem with this, they can come to my office. They can sit down and talk to me. Listen to this.
I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly.
There was a thought from the Republicans that AOC is directing this, and she said that senators are welcome to go to her office directly. Is she?
Why are you saying such a ridiculous thing? Why are you saying?
She said go to her office directly. Do you think there's any?
She is not directing this. She's wonderful. She's a real team player and the rest of that. You started by saying Republicans saying that she's directing this. She is not. Hakeem Jeffries is. And this takes a lot of experience, a lot of unity from the caucus in terms of the point of view. And that's what this is. She's an articulate spokesperson for her point of view.
For her point of view.
She doesn't She doesn't like the premise. But it's what AOC said. So you can keep yelling at the reporter or the anchor. Yeah. It's what AOC said.
That's right. She was quoting AOC, but we were reacting to this because she's saying she is not directing this. I like her. She's amazing. But she's not in charge, but I like her. Yeah. It's Hakeem Jeffries. She is not directing this. This takes a lot of experience.
Right. What she doesn't like, because she is the speaker emeritus.
Right, right.
I mean, I don't know. They should probably remove that. But she likes being in a position of power. But AOC is 100% right. The party is being governed by her ideology right now. And honestly, I don't know why we're inviting the leaders, Jeffries and Schumer. So we should just cut to the chase. Go straight to AOC and have the debate with her about what's in the bill, not going back and forth with Schumer. Schumer is being influenced by AOC right now because he knows the right thing to do.
I love the fact that you have the vice president out there first and leadership in the Senate and the House, because the president, if you noticed him a couple of days ago, he's announcing he's going after child cancer with AI. He's talking about getting your health care bills knocked down. He's dealing with the military and their new, with Pfizer. He's dealing with the new military, so he can continue to govern, and he lets everybody else get into the mud. And you can stay in the mud. Let the president be the president. I think it's a great way to approach it.
Don't you think, Brian, when you watch Nancy Pelosi, that's the problem with the Democratic Party.
100%.
They're walking a fine line. She wants to be the establishment in the Democratic Party. I was in charge. Now it's Hakeem Jeffries. I pass the torch to him. AOC, we appreciate her. We're trying to appease all of the squad, but they're not really in charge.
Do you remember, Ainsley, I know you do, why Joe Biden left? It was Nancy Pelosi that finally had to step up, sound off, because nobody else, including Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, would say a word. So she finally had to take control again.
She and George Clooney.
Right. And so, George Clooney. And because Barack Obama didn't want to do it. So she had to do it again, and she might have to step forward here. But she has to realize, like Ted Cruz in 2013, like the Freedom Caucus in the past, you may agree with their premise, but they don't have the leverage. That's right. The leverage is on the right now.
So plenty of finger pointing on Capitol Hill as the government shutdown rolls now into day 2. And at the center of it, apparently, is the New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She doesn't even serve in the Senate. Well, some Republicans say that Senator Schumer allowed the shutdown to stave off a primary challenge from her here in New York. She was asked about it, and here's what she said.
This is so not about me. In this moment, this is about people being able to insure their children. I saw some senators speculating about this, and I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open, and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly. Because what I'm not going to do is tolerate 4 million uninsured Americans.
Mary Catherine Ham's office is always open. She's a Fox News contributor, and she's with us now. Hello, MK. Good morning to you.
Hello.
That wasn't the end of it. Earlier in the day, Bernie Sanders and AOC put out this video on social media.
Republicans are attacking Alexandria, attacking me. Why didn't you vote for this clean CR to keep the government open?
Well, there's nothing clean about it. This is one of the dirtiest tricks that is being pulled on the American people right now. And so Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. And we're saying no. We need to stand up for the American people. We can do what we can to continue to make healthcare accessible, affordable, as we work to make it a human right for all.
Okay, Mary Catherine. Look, I think that response is to be expected. I don't know what. In this current fight, they're not going to get what they want. Go ahead.
No, I mean, bless their hearts. They can try to change the definition of clean if they want to, but it's not real. It's obviously true that the House passed a clean continuing resolution, which would have funded the government at current levels for 7 weeks. It went to the Senate. The Senate had the chance to pass it with a couple of Democrats peeling off, and those Democrats decided not to because their desire is to dirty up a clean continuing resolution with over $1 trillion in quote-unquote healthcare spending that is these expanded Obamacare subsidies from the COVID era. Like many things from the COVID era, the price was high and the results very low. These subsidies go to basically covering the fact that Obamacare's promises were not real and that premiums keep going up and that they need to say, oh, we've got more people covered. So what do? They throw a bunch of money at the problem. They increase costs for everybody else and premiums go up more. They allow fraudulent and non-income verified and citizen status verified people to enroll, to double enroll. These are bad practices. This makes the problem worse, but they are very excited about spending money, and they're very excited about covering up the fact that Obamacare didn't do what they promised it would do. So they want to do it with your money. And Republicans are like, no.
Right. It's pretty interesting because there is an attempt, and Mark Thiessen talks about this today, where the Democrats are saying they're trying to kill Obamacare subsidies, when in fact these were Biden-era emergency measures because of COVID, and they want those extensions. So it would be nice to just have an honest debate about that. Interesting to me that AOC and Bernie decided to do that video on their own. Meantime, Hakeem Jeffries had this live stream yesterday.
It's almost Halloween, you know, and while we are swallowing these bitter pills, Jill was kind enough to bring some treats as we prepare to celebrate.
So there's
Halloween.
tricks and there's treats.
My fellow Orlandoan, the voice of a generation here.
Gen Z is in the house.
It was a disgusting video. It was a racist video. But y'all, I ain't scared. I'm from Brooklyn.
I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? I can hear you, Troy. I can hear you. And we're going to get that audio fixed. You know, this is a live stream.
It makes me feel like in school when your friend didn't know the answer and you wanted to help them. It's so uncomfortable. So Hakeem Jeffries had this live stream, and Politico said that at times just a dozen viewers were watching the YouTube stream. That's probably their staff. And later in the evening, Democrats said 35,000 people tuned in. But on YouTube, Democrats peaked at around 1,000 viewers. You cannot play that card against the bully pulpit and expect to win.
No, this is not scintillating content. I would say that AOC and Bernie are superior to those live streams, but the bar is very, very low. Not a lot of people are going to pay attention to that. Perhaps we could add to the CR a rider that's like, Democrats stop pretending to be podcasters, because that would spare all of us this. But look, they've already lost the Washington Post editorial board. They've already lost several Democratic votes in the Senate. They're not winning this argument. And actually, I think it's opened up a useful argument about what these subsidies actually are, about how they are a slush fund, about how they go in almost entirely to insurance companies, often to cover people who don't even know they're enrolled. Because again, the Democrats' desire is to up the numbers of covered people, but Obamacare never offered good care and affordable care, despite it being named the Affordable Care Act. So they want to use your money to cover that up.
Mary Catherine, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Open up a whole new can of worms with all this. With that video, I think, with AOC and Bernie is very interesting. The way they hug and they walk down that sidewalk. We didn't show that portion, but we're going to have some questions come up for Caroline Levitt about this shortly. Thanks, MK.
Thank you.
There is zero good reason for them to vote to shut the government down right now. They are doing it for political reasons.
All we're asking is for the Trump administration and Republicans could come to the table and negotiate. Instead, he's acting like a mobster.
This is a failure of leadership. Republicans lead the House, Republicans lead the Senate, Republicans lead the White House.
The far left and the base really went crazy on poor Chuck Schumer, and so he changed his tune.
Live look at Washington, D.C. this afternoon as lawmakers point fingers over the government shutdown. The shutdown now rolling into a second day, 37 hours and counting, according to the White House clock. Well, I'm John Roberts in Washington, and welcome to Friday Eve, as we like to call it around here.
Yep,
looking lovely in white today, Sam.
Thank you very much, John. Good to be with you and kick off a new hour here. I'm Sandra Smith in New York, and this is America Reports. So Republicans say Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is more concerned with giving health care to illegal immigrants than keeping the government open. And a potential 2028 primary from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is looming above his head. But first, a quick flashback. Democrats giving illegal immigrants health care isn't a new policy position.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
That about says it. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum also slamming the Democratic Party for its, quote, intent to close our parks, stop U.S. energy production, and hinder our first responders.
The secretary will be joining us live here on America Reports in moments. But let's kick things off with Peter Dufsey. He is live at the White House for us. Hello, Peter.
Sandra, good afternoon. Here at the White House, they call it the Schumer shutdown, but officials are candid about who they think is really pulling the strings.
But the reality here, and let's be honest about the politics, is that Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge.
And the vice president is right about her clout, because after AOC said this,
I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly.
then Nancy Pelosi, widely accepted as the most influential congressional Democrat of an entire generation, couldn't believe her ears.
There was a thought from the Republicans that AOC is directing this, and she said that senators are welcome to go to her office directly. Is she driving that?
Why are you saying such a ridiculous thing?
I'm just quoting what AOC said. She said go to her office directly. Do you think there's any credibility to that?
She's not directing this. She's wonderful. She's a real team player and the rest of that. You started by saying Republicans saying that she's directing this. She is not. Hakeem Jeffries is.
President Trump and Russ Vought, the budget chief, are planning to meet at some point today to talk about Project 2025 style budget cuts, something that are easier to make during a shutdown. Sandra?
Okay, Peter Ducey setting it up for us. Thank you very much, Peter. John?
Lots to chew over here with the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, who joins us now. You heard what the Vice President said there, Mr. Secretary, about this being driven by political pressure from the left and a potential primary challenge to Chuck Schumer in 2028. Jared Golden, Democrat from Maine, would seem to agree with the Vice President. He said the following, quote, "This government shutdown is the result of hardball politics driven by demands far-left groups are making for Democratic Party leaders to put on a show of their opposition to President Trump. There's room and time to negotiate, but normal policy disagreements are no reason to subject our constituents to the continued harm of the shutdown." To you, is this about policy or is it about politics?
This is 100% politics, John and Sandra. The Vice President said it clearly. The representative from Maine also nailed it when he was talking about this, because as Americans need to know, the House has already passed a continuing resolution. There are no changes to the federal budget on the line. If people want to negotiate, they could do that while the government's running as opposed to when it's shut down. And Americans need to know this Democrat shutdown, this Schumer shutdown, for an agency like Interior, where we've got tens of thousands of people across the country, we're now doing everything we can to try to keep our parks open. We can't use any appropriated funds during a time like this, so we've got to be very creative about legally finding ways to pay people and do that. Our first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, all the things that we're doing to keep the essential services going. This just distracts us from advancing and moving things forward for the American people. You would never run a business this way. This is 100% politics.
Spoken like a true businessman. Mr. Secretary, good to have you on the program. Here's Secretary Bessent. He went on CNBC earlier today. He is making the case that this is all about Schumer's poll numbers. Listen.
Chuck Schumer did the right thing in the spring and led the Senate to a clean CR. What's changed since then is it's his poll numbers. The president, Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, they're not negotiating with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're negotiating with Representative Ocasio-Cortez because she's nipping at his heels. And, so the American people are being held hostage by Chuck Schumer's poll numbers.
Well, as you are also making a similar case, will the American people just see right through this?
I hope that they do see right through this, and I hope they see through it quickly so that we can get back to work advancing the agenda that the American people voted for under President Trump, making so much progress on so many fronts. Because this can affect energy production. I mean, we're working to keeping permitting open on federal lands. When we're permitting timber, oil and gas, grazing lands, that's revenue that comes into the government. It's not all expense. There's also revenue. And when AOC is, trying to shut down the whole government, this is every American ends up paying for it in the end because this is hurting revenue, because they'll come in and they'll say, no, we're going to reimburse everybody for their expenses, even though they're not working. But we have the potential for lost revenue here.
Mr. Secretary, Republicans are saying that the Democrats shut down the government because they are making demands to give health care to illegal immigrants. Chuck Schumer says, whoa, that's just not true. Listen to what he said.
When they say that undocumented immigrants are going to get this money, it's a lie, plain and simple.
All right, so let's put up on the screen here. This is page 57 of the Democrats' continuing resolution that they're proposing. This is section 2141. It's in ledge speak, so you probably can't even begin to understand it. But basically what it calls for is a repeal of restrictions in the big, beautiful bill that limited federal health care dollars for people who are lawfully present in the United States but don't have legal status. So if this was revoked, as the Democrats wanted to, it would give parolees, like hundreds of thousands of people admitted under the CHNV program or the CBP-1 app, access to health care. It would also restore full Medicaid funding for illegal migrants, illegal aliens who visit the emergency room. So do they want to give health care to illegal aliens or not?
Well, they absolutely do. And as I said, this is not about smart policy. It's not about the Republicans that care about all Americans, hardworking Americans. This is about the extreme policies that the left is trying to jam down. They're upset about what the extreme policies. They didn't get into the one big beautiful bill. Now they're trying to use this leverage, and they're holding all the American people hostage for something that the Congress didn't vote for. Congress didn't pass that stuff for a reason back in July, and trying to use this now at this point. I mean, if they want these policies, then introduce a bill in Congress and see if it passes. But don't hold America hostage right now against doing the work that we have to do for the American people every single day. That's what we do. We serve the American people.
All right. So, Mr. Secretary, I wonder if you can quantify, as I circle back to something you just said a moment ago, because Secretary Bessent this morning suggested that as this goes on and the longer this goes on, he predicted that we could take a hit to our GDP. You just said a moment ago, suggested the longer this goes on, we could see lost revenue. Can you quantify that for us? I mean, we're about to have Austin Goolsbee on from the Chicago Federal Reserve. Mohammed El-Arian's coming on. The predictions are all over the place. But what say you? How big of a hit could we take to the American economy as this goes on?
Well, it is, Secretary Bessent is right. I mean, this creates a drag on government, and we'd like to, our team, the Trump administration, we'd like to get government as small as we can and let the private sector take over. But unwinding all of the overregulation that occurred during the Biden administration takes time. When we're not at work doing the work we're doing right now, it slows down the effort under President Trump. We're cutting a record amount of red tape. When the government shuts down, that slows it down. We're building more efficient government. We're taking costs out of government and putting that resources back in the private sector. And like I said earlier, when you take a look at it, 20% of the land in America is public lands managed by the federal government. Most of that land in Interior, Interior standalone has got the largest balance sheet in the world. We've got 700 million acres of subsurface, 500 million acres of surface, 2.5 billion of offshore. When our team members are not able to go to work to help manage that land, we're losing revenue, whether it's a timber lease, a grazing lease, a coal lease, oil and gas permitting. We're trying to keep all those doors open as best we can. But when they shut down the federal government, you're shutting down the business of America.
But President Trump appears to also see some opportunity here, Mr. Secretary. This is what he sent out today on Truth Social. I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, the OMB director, to determine which of many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. They're not stupid people, so maybe this is their way of wanting to quietly and quickly make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. Is this going to be the pressure that causes Democrats to cave?
Well, it's the pressure, but it's also the truth. I mean, President Trump named his social media for a reason, calling them truths, because what he said is completely true. It is easier to make cuts during a time when the government is shut down. And any one of us that have been in these positions that have worked in the private sector can see the amount of inefficiency in government. There's so much that we can take out of government in terms of cost and still deliver great services. It's possible to have a smaller government and better services. We can do that. I mean, you take a look at the IT side of things. I mean, the technology that's running the federal government today is so ancient, so old, generations behind, and so it's costly. Every single team member that works for the federal government might spend 20% of their time on working on stuff that is that could be in the private sector, would already be automated. So President Trump and Russ Vought, I'm 100% behind their efforts. There's so many ways we can make it more efficient. If the Democrats are going to give us this chance, let's make sure we take advantage of that.
Hey, Mr. Secretary, I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Democrat Senator Chris Coons joins us in just a moment. But first to senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram with the very latest fast-moving ball on this one. Hi, Chad. Tell us what you know.
Martha, good afternoon. The question is whether Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez compelled Schumer to take a hardline position. Critics argue Schumer veered left and is trying to protect himself, but Ocasio-Cortez contends she is not piloting the shutdown ship.
This is so not about me in this moment. I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly.
But there's dissension among Democrats about the outsized influence of Ocasio-Cortez when it comes to the shutdown.
There was a thought from the Republicans that AOC is directing this. And
She
credibility
is not
to that?
directing this. She's wonderful. She's a real team player and the rest of that. You started by saying Republicans saying that she's directing this. She is not. Hakeem Jeffries is.
Pelosi just praised how Democratic leaders are handling the shutdown. That said, some Democrats privately tell Fox that the party would match up better with President Trump if Pelosi were still in charge and if the late Harry Reid still led Senate Democrats. Other Democrats say voters don't worry about internal shutdown politics.
My constituents don't care about the finger pointing. They just want us to govern. They don't care about the politics and who's up and who's down. They want us to govern. They want to have their health care. People are calling me, calling my offices here and home and saying, do you know what's happening to my ACA coverage?
Although Schumer is in charge, Ocasio-Cortez has none of the responsibility, and that could boost her political fortunes. Martha?
Chad, thank you very much. President Trump vowing to clear out dead wood on day 2 of the shutdown as both sides dig in for the long haul. The White House has been freezing billions in funds for Democratic states, and the president was meeting with his budget chief, Russ Vought, in order to determine which, quote, Democrat agencies will be on the chopping block next. Meanwhile, after claiming Republicans are lying about illegal immigrants getting health care, some Democrats are just flat out admitting it.
The amount of money that actually is going towards people who are undocumented is such a small portion.
We got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
AOC is taking some heat for the shutdown. Republicans say Chuck Schumer is basically a hostage, terrified of a 2028 primary challenge from the squad's firebrand in chief. But she and Pelosi are just brushing that off.
This is so not about me. Because I saw some senators speculating about this, and I saw some Republican members of Congress saying, oh, well, if we have this shutdown, it's because of AOC. Well, if that's the case, my office is open, and you are free to walk in and negotiate with me directly.
There was a thought from the Republicans that AOC is directing this, and she said that senators are welcome to go to her office directly. Is she?
Why are you saying such a ridiculous thing?
Amid all this shutdown drama, a meme war is being fought in the White House has been looping those Hakeem Jeffries sombrero AI pictures in the briefing room. And let's just say the minority leader and CNN, they are not finding this funny at all.
They were playing that mariachi music as well over the loudspeakers for all the press that was coming in and out of the White House today. They simply don't care about that criticism.
I'm actually referring to some of his social media posts, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense.
The sombrero and the mustache?
Correct.
But now Hakeem Jeffries seems to be leaning into the trolling.
This year, they've done nothing. Zip, zero. Stingy with De Niro. Nothing to lower the high cost of living for everyday Americans.
I think that rhymed, Jesse.
I thought it was good. DJ Hakeem's really, really good.
Dana, the art of war. Everybody knows that you don't attack your enemy from a position of weakness, and that's what the Democrats are doing. They are a party that's never been weaker, and they have decided to go all in. And they have so much more to lose, all their pet projects, their windmills, their bureaucrats. And the world keeps spinning during the government shutdown, and people are starting to realize, wait a second, maybe we don't need this big, fat, bloated government. Everything seems to be working fine. The messaging war is embarrassing. All they're talking about is sombreros and health care for illegal aliens. And then AOC, she triggers the Schumer shutdown, and then she Bigfoots Hakeem so badly, Nancy has to come in and rescue her. The Obamacare bailout, put aside the illegal alien health care. This is what this is about. They created this program that was supposed to help people with health insurance, and it quadrupled the price of everything. So they're basically holding the government hostage and making Trump fix a problem that they created. Dana, permission to make an analogy.
No.
This is like when your wife forces you to buy an expensive car, and then she just wrecks it over and over again, and it's always stuck in the shop. But she wants to go out, right? But she won't take an Uber. She won't be seen in an Uber. She calls you cheap. So you know what you do? You sit on the couch, you say, fine, babe, I'm just going to sit down, order pizza, and watch football. You're the one that needs to go out and shop and get their nails done. This is a war they cannot win. You're playing chicken with the guy that loves sitting down.
Love your analogies.
Thank you.
I will always grant permission. Kellyanne, there's lots of different places you could take this, but from a messaging standpoint, it feels to me that President Trump has a much stronger hand to play, and that the Democrats have a weak hand, but they're overplaying it.
They are. Look, Donald Trump is making trade deals and peace deals and tax deals. He's sitting down with world leaders, and you have Hakeem Jeffries sitting down with his fellow Democrat Jake Tapper talking about sombreros and mustaches. You see who's owning them. President Trump is owning them online, but he's owning them offline, and that's more important here. Dana, President Trump has basically said to the world quite transparently today, there's so much we can do during this shutdown. He's never shut down. He exhausts staffers 1/3 his age. And he's saying, wow, now would be a good time to doge all the stuff we didn't doge, frankly. Now we can examine projects. Hey, folks, it's not like Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to use the power of government to say, raid your home, investigate, insult, impeach, indict you, threaten your kids, ruin your business, say you're going to be put in the big house and never again the White House. He's using the government organs to make sure that we are spending taxpayer dollars on things that align with our values as Americans. Guess what? Second Avenue subway, bridges and tunnels, all these infrastructure projects. Dana, I want them on meritocracy. I want them on safety, not on sex and race, if these contracts were given out for DEI reasons. And we'll see. Russ Vought, who lives for this stuff, I love it, former colleague in the White House, he is saying that we're pausing, we're reviewing, we're examining. That's what President Trump was elected to do. I think that the Democrats, they lack leadership and joy. They lack vision. They lack any kind of response to Trump, but they're missing something else. I was in the Situation Room on January 4th, 2019, when we were on the verge of a government shutdown. The Democrats shut the government down over border funding, and they had to own it for 30-some days. In that meeting, Pelosi commanded the room when it was time for the Democrats to speak. Schumer said absolutely nothing. The same Schumer, 6.5 years later, is terrible at this. I think they just don't have a really good messenger. They don't just have a communications problem. I think this time the Democrats have a fact problem.
Harold, what do you think the Democrats should do next?
So good to be with everybody. Let me level set this for a moment. In the last 48 years, we have not had Congress do its required work, meaning to avoid a moment like this. So they're supposed to pass all the appropriations bills, or 13 of them they're supposed to pass. They've not done that but 4 times in 48 years. The last time they did it, I was a first-term congressman back in 1997. They did it in 77, 89, 95, 97. We sometimes like to keep partisan marks here. There were 3 Democrats, 1 Republican, that being done. 2, I believe in consistency, and I've said all along, when the Republicans, when you guys, when we talked about the last shutdown, there have been 6 closures in 30 years, the last 3 decades. I thought it was wrong for Democrats not to pass a clean CR, and I thought the president was wrong then not to ask his party to pass a clean CR, keep government open, and let's figure out the stuff on the border. Because the wall, I was a supporter of building the wall. In this instance here, I wish Democrats would get back, and I understand where the young fellow from Maine, the congressman, the Democrat, who voted in favor of the clean CR, and I think Democrats should tell Republicans this. We're going to have 4 to 5 weeks to figure out what we do on health care. Now, I differ with those you around the table. I think this health care thing is a lot more serious than we think. 50 million Americans, 50, get their health care from the Affordable Care Act. We call it Obamacare. To give you a sense, if you live in Florida, 3.3 million Floridians are on it. The second biggest state is Texas. They're 2.4 million. And the fourth biggest is Georgia with 880,000. My home state of Tennessee has 350,000 people who their health insurance comes from Obamacare. What Democrats are upset about is that come mid-November, the premiums are going to go way up.
Why?
Well, premiums
why?
Well, because health insurance.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Innovation in health care. Okay. Inflation.
Okay.
And there are a number of reasons why it's going up for your health care and my health care. Both are going up. Okay. So when we passed the big beautiful bill, and prior to that, the tax bill that you guys passed in 2017, when President Trump got elected again for the second time, he said, you have to renew my tax cuts. I actually thought a lot of that was right, because if you raise taxes on a whole number of people, you would disrupt the economy. The same is true with health care. If you raise health premiums on 50 million Americans, not to mention those who are already impacted by the big beautiful bill and those who are impacted by Medicaid, that essentially is a tax increase on those people. So I hope Democrats can get back to the table. I'm a contrarian here with my party, Jesse. I'm saying get back. I'm consistent. Vote for the clean CR and hold their feet to the fire and make it clear you will close the government down again with reason if they don't come in negotiating good faith to not only deal with the Medicaid issue, but most importantly, to deal with the Affordable Care Act. That's what I would be doing if I was in
One of the
Congress.
Affordable Care Act problems, and then I'll give it to the floor to you, Greg, is that the rules are such that they have forced out all the healthy people, so then you have a smaller pool of people who are not healthy, and it's just like it's a screwed up market, and we should have an honest conversation about all the problems.
So should we minus those people out of health care then?
I think that we should be honest about like how bad the situation is and how a free market could help. But that was my position back in 20 whatever when Obama did that. What do you think about the Democrats all day yesterday saying it wasn't about health care?
Well, I just want to look. I have some information to respond with. To respond to Harold, where is it?
That's because you have health care and you got the biggest part.
Yes, I am a rich, white conservative. I love it when Trump says he wants to get rid of Deadwood. Immediately, John Kerry went into hiding. But I love that Trump makes shutdowns fun because he makes everything fun with the memes. Poor Hakeem Jeffries, or as some like to call him, the straight Obama. He doesn't know how to react to silly jokes. So he says, I'll just join in. And he's so stilted, it's painful. But they got to understand, only the right can do memes because memes find truth in absurdity, which is why the left and the woke is such a rich target. But you can't do it in reverse. The left are terrible at it because they're the absurdity in the equation. So they can't even see outside themselves. It's easy for us to lampoon them. How do you lampoon us? We don't want men and women's sports. We want a tight border. We want a reduction in crime. Good luck lampooning that. But defunding the cops, we can lampoon that. Dudes in dresses showing off their junk to kids. That's pretty easy, guys. Maybe change your policies and stop worrying about the sombreros, which gets to my bigger point about this issue. It's not about the issue at all. The memes are telling the Democrats and the media, especially who's the lady with the teenage boy voice? Caitlin Connor? Yeah, Collins. We're telling you, we don't care what you think anymore. The accusation of racism doesn't fly because you said it about everything. You said sports were racist, fitness was racist, food was racist, inheritance taxes were racist. So we're taking your only tool and we're turning it into a joke. The sombrero totally just chaps your hide. We laugh. We're not running away from you. We're running at you, and we're laughing all the way. As Scott Adams says, this is a breakout moment. This is breakout mode for the Republican Party. And it's another lesson that we learned from Trump. We learned that Democrats treat tax dollars like musical chairs. Oh, it's not going to illegals, they say. That's true. You don't hand 10 grand right there when they walk in across the border. No, but you slip it into the COVID relief bill, then you jack it all up, and then you try to make it temporary. Or you say we don't pay for illegal health care. Well, the states do. And how are the states able to do it? Because the federal government gives them money to spend on other things so they can spend it there. It's an opportunity cost. Democrats are like the dude with the EBT card that was meant for milk and bread, but they end up buying cigarettes and liquor for their homie.
For their homie.
In your face, Harold.
All I know is when you all did that shutdown in 17, and you predicted
not
a
stopping.
Republican wave of
19.
Not stopping.
Clean CR one more time. I just kind of like play by the rules every week.
It's the Democrats' fault. There is zero excuse for them to shut down our government right now.
My constituents know that this has been caused by the Republicans' failure to govern. But my constituents don't care about the finger pointing. They just want us to govern.
People say, why aren't you negotiating with Schumer and Jeffries? Because I quite literally have nothing to negotiate. There's nothing I can pull out of the bill that was a Republican priority.
The Republicans have control of the White House, of the Senate, and of the House. They are in charge. They are accountable.
Well, the finger point of the debate continue over the government shutdown. Let's dig deeper on it by bringing in our panel, former Republican National Committee Communications Director Doug Heye, Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and president, and USA Today White House correspondent Francesca Chambers. I want to start off the panel with a couple of reality checks. First, on this idea of money for health care for illegal aliens. Democrats say it doesn't exist, but let's put up on the screen the clause in their continuing resolution that they wanted to get passed, which eliminates restrictions contained in the big, beautiful bill. It basically restores money for undocumented immigrants paroled into the country or here under TPS, restores full emergency room funding under Medicaid for illegal aliens. And even Ro Khanna admitted last night, yes, there is some money for illegal aliens. Listen here.
The amount of money that actually is going towards people who are undocumented is such a small portion of the Medicaid cuts or the Affordable Care Act, if at all.
And it's such a small portion, but Francesca, it would appear to be, despite Democrats' protestations that it's not, it would be there.
So part of the disagreement here is over the point where you're making about undocumented is that some of these immigrants who came into the country came in and then the Biden administration said that they could stay. So they're legally in the country regardless of how they entered into the lawfully present inside the United States. Regardless, John, the White House thinks at this point that they are winning this messaging war with Democrats right now. They say that they're taking this, day by day. They think that historically the party that has been seen as voting against the resolution is the one that gets blamed for the shutdown. So they're waiting to see what happens here. But if you look at the Washington Post poll that came out today, there's some warning signs for the White House in that. You have a situation where Democrats are saying, independents are saying that they blame the president and the White House and Republicans for this shutdown. And then generally speaking, among a broader electorate, you're seeing that more Americans are blaming Republicans in this particular situation than Democrats.
Does blame really matter at this point?
No, I don't know that it does. I mean, eventually it will. I mean, if we look at shutdowns past, certainly when Republicans were, they took the brunt of one of the previous shutdowns, and it cost them politically. But both sides are existing in their own sort of information bubbles on this, and both sides think they have the upper hand in the politics. And I'm sure their supporters are both in favor of what Republicans are doing and what Democrats are doing. And the question is, what are independents going to do? And how much is that really going to move the needle overall? But I do think Republicans are winning at least this initial messaging war. And we saw, to your point, Democrats said first it's a lie and then said, well, okay, maybe it's true a little bit, but not as true as JD Vance is saying.
So, Doug, you've always got a very balanced perspective on things. What do you think should happen here?
Look, I don't think anything of this is dollars and cents. And what's interesting is, we often hear that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So let's talk about the rhyme. October 2nd, 2013, I was working in that building behind you, and we were dealing with a shutdown. We were dealing on our second day of a shutdown, just like we are now, over the word fight. And it's because enough Republicans in the House Republican Conference, led on by some Republican senators, said, we need to fight and defund Obamacare. We didn't have a strategy to land a punch, knock down our opponent, win the fight. We just had to show that we wanted to fight. Where are Democrats now? We got to fight. We got to fight Donald Trump. We got to stand up to him. They have, if you look at the interviews today that Hakeem Jeffries did, he has no plan to land a punch, win around or win the fight. He says, if we stay around long enough, we're going to win. That's not a strategy. You don't win politically if you don't have a strategy.
Yeah. Hey, the other reality check comes in the form of what President Trump was saying on Truth Social about getting together with his OMB director, Russ Vought, to talk about changing the face of the federal government. He said, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democrat agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. Remember what Donald Trump said a year ago. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. So I'm wondering, Francesca, did he just learn about Project 2025 in the last year, or did he know about it all along?
And it's also not clear, John, whether or not he was actually sitting there with Russ Vought and going line by line, himself and deciding what is or isn't being cut here. Because, of course, prior to this, the Office of Management and Budget, as well as the Office of Personnel Management, they had sent out messages to these various agencies saying, no, you send us plans for who you think that you should cut, and then we'll approve them. And I will also note that one of the messages that was sent out last weekend told them, oh, by the way, we might also bring people back to have the minimum number required to fulfill the statutory mandate. So it's not clear how many of these, even if they were fired, would be permanent, and how much of this is a strategy to try and get Democrats to the table.
But Tom, this could be much different than shutdowns in the past, where people got furloughed and then, for the most part, they all got brought back. People might get furloughed, then they might get laid off, and they might lose their jobs.
That's right. It could be very different. And I do think that is a concern that Democrats will bring them back to the table and will eventually end this thing, probably sooner rather than later, because the Trump administration, again, feels like they have the upper hand, feels like they're driving the messaging war, and now are going to see this as an opportunity to do further what they were doing during Doge, but again, under different circumstances and ones that are much more politically favorable to them.
Yeah, we talked to the Interior Secretary, Doug Burgum, about it. Here's what he said.
It is easier to make cuts during a time when the government is shut down. And any one of us that have been in these positions that have worked in the private sector can see the amount of inefficiency in government. And if the Democrats are going to give us this chance, let's make sure we take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's the last part of what he said there. If the Democrats are going to give us this chance to change the structure of government, let's take advantage of that. Democrats have to be looking at that and saying, oh, my God, what kind of cudgel did we just hand them?
Well, first, I'm pro-Doug. I'm always pro-Doug. But, to Tom's point, I think the longer this goes on, the reality of the Democrats sort of Jedi mind tricking themselves into fight is enough and fight is a strategy will backfire on them. Because if Trump goes through with exactly what he's talking about, Russ Vought is talking about, Doug Burgum has just said in that piece, then essentially they will have enabled, forget the politics, policies that they will howl over. And ultimately, and we've seen this already with New York City, Donald Trump is grabbing Chuck Schumer's fists and he's playing the stop hitting yourself game. You need a strategy to win here, and it's not clear that the Democrats have that. Fight is not an answer. It's not a strategy.
Well, if they lose this fight and Donald Trump restructures the federal government, it'll give the Democrats something to fight about next year. Right?
Well, there's another vote coming up tomorrow night, as we expect. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see if there's any defections.
We'll see if there's any people.
They got three right now from the other side. We'll see if they get more.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.